Resident Evil 6.
What is going on, and welcome to another video, and welcome to my Resident Evil 6 Platinum Trophy review. In this video what I'm going to do is I'm going to be reviewing Resident Evil 6, not in the traditional way. I will give you my opinions and my experiences of playing the game, but I will then talk about my experiences of fully completing the game, and that involves getting a Platinum Trophy and all of the DLC. This is a video that's been a long time in the making. This game has really tested my ability at times, and I'm going to share that with you. I'm going to share that pain with you. So before we begin, let's drop. Okay, so I'm going to start with my general review of the game. You may be able to tell by the introduction that I made that if I had to summarise this game, there's no real beating around the bush. This game is bad. Like, sorry for those Resident Evil fans, I played Resident Evil 5, you know, it was a change in a different direction for Capcom, and I enjoyed the co-op gameplay with Chris Redfield, and I feel like this one tried to emulate that a little bit while also approaching a new audience, and to me it just didn't deliver at all. Now, I'm going to slate this game, I'm going to dig into this game quite heavily. Bear with me. If you love this game, just bear with me because I will loop back around to some positives. But for me, this game falls flat in three major categories. Firstly, the gameplay. Secondly, the story. And thirdly, the overall design. So as you can tell by those three things, they're basically the entirety of a video game. The only things to do well is for its time, it looks pretty good and the voice acting is pretty good. Now, we'll start with gameplay. Where to start with gameplay? So this game came out in 2012, and we also had The Last of Us Part 1, came out the year afterwards. We had Spec Up the Line, we had a few third-person shooter games, we had Gears of War, we had a lot of third-person shooter games, and Resident Evil 6 is one of the worst gunplay mechanics I have ever played for third-person shooters. It is horrendous. There's a broken cover system, it's so jadey and jagged and just not fluid at all. The gunplay is terrible. You feel like no matter what weapon you're using, you're just firing a pea shooter and it just bounces off everything. Now, I want to move on to the design next because I think that the design flows really well in with how poor the gameplay is. The design is laughable. Like, the enemy design, I'm going to put some footage in now. It's just dire. It's just embarrassing. Like, who thought that a great idea for an enemy would be to have someone's legs blow off and then he turns into an upside down bat and shoots you from hanging upside down as this mutated bat? Who thought it would be a good idea to have, in this world of the new virus, the C virus, this massive pandemic, they would have giant snakes? Like, that just doesn't make sense because they're all about these mutated monsters, and then they just decide to make a giant snake. Surely these viruses would be like monsters that aren't really recognisable. I hate it when game designers and movie designers and all these things make the cheesy decision to make an animal that we already know but just scarier, because that doesn't really work in my opinion. Also, on top of that, they then have some of the big enemies. Like, Simmons is one of the main villains. He can turn into a saber-toothed tiger, he can turn into a dinosaur, and it just looks terrible. It's just over and over again just delivering terrible enemy design, and I think that is a big flaw. And then as well, the level design is just so average at best. And now the story. Now guys, I'm going to try and keep this as short as possible. I'm not going to ramble. I could talk about why I don't like Resident Evil for about an hour. Resident Evil 6 for about an hour. The story is just all over the place. There's 4 stories intertwined. Now guys, this game is 8 years old, so I'm not really going to be giving you any spoilers warnings. I'm just going to fire with all this stuff because it's 8 years old, this game. And if you enjoyed it, you would have played it. Basically, there's 4 characters. So for those who played Resident Evil 5, we all know Wesker, who was a super-powered man, superhuman. His son, Jake, who's voiced by Troy Baker, does quite a good job considering how bad the lines are, considering it came out around about the same time as Last of Us, so he was probably recording lines for Resident Evil 6 thinking, my god, this is terrible, and then going from that to voicing Joel in The Last of Us. That must have been such an interesting dynamic for him voicing with he's working with terrible lines in the Resident Evil and working with this masterpiece with The Last of Us. But anyway, he does okay, but he might be playing as a super powered. Considering how powerful Wesker is, he can dodge bullets. All Jake can do is do front flips on poles and do some basic kung fu, which is just weaker than a pistol, which doesn't make sense because Wesker is basically like Mr. Incredible, but with super speed. But never mind. He basically plays 4 characters. You play as Leon, you play as Chris, you play as Ada, and you play as Jake. They all have a supporting character, and the only good level is Leon's first level, where you play it sort of like Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 2. It's a little bit creepy, and then just goes from where it just becomes more and more over the top and crazy, and it just doesn't work at all. And all these stories intertwine, and they don't really make that much sense. And all in all, it just falls flat all of the time, and it just doesn't land. It's just poor, and it's very confusing. I found myself getting lost all of the time. I played through this game 3 times to get all the trophies, and by the 3rd time I knew what was going on, but the first 2 I just had no idea what was going on. As well, guys, I want to talk about the villains. So there's a character called Ustanak, and he's basically like a Nemesis ripoff. We ended up just calling him Ustank because it fit well with the character, because he's one of the worst designed enemies I've ever seen. And Capcom make the decision to make him invincible. You know, he can be blown up, he can be drilled into by a drill, he can fall thousands of feet, and no matter what, he's still alive. And I would have loved, well, I wouldn't have loved, I would have been worried to see the discussions that Capcom would have had around this game as to why they thought the decisions they made were actually good, because I just don't understand it at all. And things haven't changed in terms of gaming in 8 years. But Capcom have made such good games since. It's just mad to think that Resident Evil 6 was just so bad. Okay, guys, so I've said quite a lot of slating things, and if I could probably give this game a score out of 10, I'd probably give it a 3 out of 10. It doesn't do particularly anything well. It looks okay as a game. Everything's just jaded and jagged, and the gunplay is terrible, as I've said, and the story's terrible, and the enemy design, the level design, is just laughable. Quite frankly, that is one of the main issues for me. There is one saving grace. That's right. The saving grace is the title that I gave him and some of my friends gave him is Chris Shotgun Fist Redfield. There's 2 pros to this game which I can only class as Christopher Shotgun Fist Redfield and Leon Kennedy. They're both really sound characters and they all want to do the right thing and they really carry this game. Chris, however, doesn't always carry this game for the best reasons, because a lot of the stuff that happens to him is just so bizarre, and although his character is a good, noble, American soldier, he's a bit of a meme. He's a bit of a walking tank meme, and I find that hilarious, and we found it hilarious.
You calling me deaf?
Also, it's very funny in the fact that he's just this steroid-riddled man walking around, has amnesia for some reason, and then he just switches back on. He's eating steaks, being abusive to and sexist to women in the bar, then he's back saving lives, tranking down people. It's just ridiculous, but it's so ridiculous that it's funny. And I feel like, although I've slated this game a lot, I want to say, like, the first time I played through this game, I wasn't really enjoying this game, and I had a lot of negative things to say. Now, I am wrapping this up with a positive, and I think, despite all the bad in the game, it has this weird charm. It does, where it's sort of like, a lot of its cons, you sort of take them in your stride, and you sort of start to wear them and think, yeah, you know what, so Jake is climbing up helicopters and jumping on poles, but it's sort of like, it kind of works a little bit in this sort of ludicrous, over-exaggerated world that Capcom always create with their games, and I feel like Chris Redfield sort of embodies that, and I think that's why you gotta love him, and you gotta appreciate a little bit of this game, despite all its flaws. It's just got that charm. It's hard to explain until you've played it. That's why a lot of people still love this game to this day. I know a lot of people hated it, and I completely understand why, but it's hard to disagree that it doesn't have this weird, unexplainable charm. Okay, so that brings me on to the trophy review. So, as you can see, there is 71 trophies for this game, and there is 51 trophies in the base game, and 20 in the DLC. This game took me around 100 hours to completely finish, and about 50 hours to platinum. Yeah, let it sink in. I spent 50 hours on the DLC, which I'm going to come to in a moment. I'm going to talk about the Platinum Trophy first. All in all, it's a pretty standard third-person adventure game. You know, you finish the game on the hardest difficulty, get some collectibles, and level up the characters. The leveling up the characters involves grinding certain parts of the game again, because you find XP, you don't earn it, like traditional games. So you end up playing like certain sections over again and over again. I ended up playing this one section with Jake about 30 times, maybe 50 times actually, to level up enough to max out my characters. But all in all, it's not too bad of a list. If you're just going for the Platinum Trophy, the game doesn't jade on you as much because you don't spend as much time with it. But, you know, all in all, 40 to 50 hours, and it's an okay Platinum list. As far as trophies lists go, it's got a good mixture of everything. I can't really slate it too much for that. In terms of difficulty, I'd probably give it a 4 out of 10. Okay, so the meat and potatoes of this trophy list, which caused me 50 hours of difficulty, is the DLC. Now there's 4 DLC, and all of it is online. That's right. And not only is this quite a bad game, it's very bad DLC online, and nobody's playing it. Yes, so this was a real challenge for me to do. It basically consists of 4 different game modes. One was like a wave-based one where you kill enemies and level up, and the more enemies you kill, the more enemies your opponent faces. Another one was just a team deathmatch one. Another one was where you play as you Stanak and you face online players. And finally there was a sort of beast mode like Gears of War 3 where one person plays as the agents and one person plays as the creatures. And all of them were terrible. Now, I suppose thank you Capcom at the time for making DLC, but at the time it wasn't free. It was about $8 per DLC. So they didn't do it out of the goodness of their heart, didn't do it out of the kindness of their heart, they did it because they wanted extra dollar bills. And what a terrible way of making dollar bills it was. And it was free on the PlayStation 4 version of the game. And it was truly the worst experience of my life. I basically had to boost every single trophy on that list. I had a buddy who I played it with. I play a lot of my online games with a certain person you may have seen from footage, you may not have seen. He boosted with me for about 10 hours out of 50, and you know, he sort of threw in the towel and says, I don't care about trophies, I've given you 10 hours of my life, I'm not giving you any more. And I was like, I completely understand, and I understand completely, thank you for your time. I had to boost with people online, other trophy hunters. There was actually quite a community of players who wanted to get these trophy lists. But one of the lists I just want to talk about quickly, all of them were difficult, but one of them involved getting 100 player kills with a creature and then also getting 100 creature kills. Now, the difficulty with this is there is AI-based creatures in the maps, so you can't tell who the creatures are, and so basically, as the players, you have to just sort of stand around and wait, and hopefully the person who kills you is a player killer, is a player. Now, this would have taken me, I think, if I was to estimate this by myself, with no boosting, probably 200 to 300 hours for these DLC trophies alone. I probably would have thrown in the towel. If I hadn't boosted with maybe 3 or 4 people who I'm very thankful for, I would have thrown in the towel for this. So if you're a completionist, the difficulty is considerably higher. Now, I would probably give this game as a difficulty overall, so for the Platinum Trophy, which is only 4 out of 10, and the DLC, I would probably give this a difficulty rating of 9 out of 10. It is so difficult because it's not because it's not skill based, it's because you are relying on other players in a dead online market, in a dead online space to come and help you out. And guys, I'm telling you, there wasn't even, I think when I was looking for games, I was getting one game every half an hour, and you needed to win, you know, you needed to play for each DLC between 20 and 100 or 150 games per bit of DLC, so you can sort of tell, and that's if you win the games, that's if you're winning the ones you need to win, not losing the ones you need to lose. So, you know, maybe even double that as how many you needed. So because of that reason, and there is a little bit of skill element to parts of the online as well, and if you don't have someone who's to boost with, you're just basically going to struggle to get this. So that's sort of my general thoughts on the game. overall, you know, as I've said, it's not a perfect game. It's got this weird charm, but all in all, the gameplay is so broken. The storyline is laughable. The enemy design is an absolute catastrophe. There's a little bit of a charm, you know, Chris and Leon come in and they save it with their just hilarious banter and charm and charisma. I think that's what really carries them through. Chris and Leon's charisma is really good. The DLC is disgustingly difficult. The actual Platinum Trophy isn't too bad, definitely doable in about 50 hours. But like I said, the DLC is about, you know, 50 hours if you boost. If you don't boost, 100 to 300 hours, I would have said. Overall, the game is a game. I'd give it a 3 out of 10. Yeah, sorry, Resident Evil. Capcom really dropped the ball with this game. And a Platinum Trophy list difficulty 4 out of 10, and is an actual overall difficulty level 9 out of 10. This game is tough, guys. It really tested me. I'm pretty sure I've got more grades than I had 2 months ago when I started this game, and I felt like at times, what a grind. However, I have that shiny Platinum Trophy, and I have that, and I feel really proud of this one. Sometimes you play games, you play the easy games, and you feel nothing. Once you get that little ping, you just feel like, yeah, move on to the next one. But when you play those big games and they're difficult and they test you, you really do get a strong sense of achievement. And this game was my 313th Platinum Trophy. That's all for this one, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Have you played this game? Let me know what you think down in the comments below. I want to know what your opinions on any Resident Evil, because now I feel like I was saying to somebody, Resident Evil 6 has sort of ruined Resident Evil a little bit for me. I know Resident Evil 2 is brilliant. I know Resident Evil 3 is pretty good, the remasters. But yeah, if you've played this game, I want to know. If you've platinumed this game, bravo. I don't know anybody in my circles who's played this game or platinumed this game. But yeah, guys, that's all for this one. Thank you so much for watching. Take it easy.